I'm going to talk today about 3 case studies from ad-funded apps, hyper-casual games. Obviously, ad revenue or ad-funded businesses have been the talk of the last year, and there are so many new businesses on that front, and it's going to be exciting. A bit about myself. I'm the CEO and co-founder of SOOMLA. I'm going to talk about SOOMLA a bit more. And I'm also the co-founder of iView. It's a video ads provider, not for mobile, for brands and stuff like that. And so you can say I know a few things about advertising. And I lived in Israel most of my life, 4 years in Boston, and I've been to 29 countries to date, mostly for conferences, I think. Some leisure also. So yeah, about SOOMLA, besides providing Wi-Fi, we also do some other things. We are the first company, we're the #1 leader for ad monetization measurement. We're the first company to measure ad LTV, to offer ad LTV measurement for mobile apps. And we were the first ones to do ad whale detection. And we have the most advanced technology in the ad monetization measurement space. You might recognize some of our customers. We have some of the leading brands in mobile games as our customers. We're super proud of that, and we have been growing super fast over the last year and a half. We're going to talk today about why measuring ad LTV is so critical. We're going to cover 3 case studies. The first one is about ad whales and how to target them using lookalike modeling. This was with Nanobit. The second one is how to use price floor optimization, how to set the price floors, and how Tripledot was able to get a lot more ARPDAU and CPMs using that. And the third one is how Latoom used granular data to decide who do they want to churn, who do they want to block, and how do they prevent churn from showing ads inside their apps. And then we'll wrap up and have some time for questions. Why ad LTV is so critical? So for ad-funded apps, for hyper-casual games, obviously super important. If you don't have ad LTV measurement, you're basically flying blind. You're spending money on marketing with no ROI measurement. So for ad-funded apps, it's quite trivial why ad LTV is so critical. But the thing is, it's also important for apps that are in-app purchase focused apps that have maybe 20-30% ad revenue. It's also super critical to measure the ad LTV. And let's see why. So on the top side of the slide, if you don't measure the ad revenue as part of your LTV, let's say you have an app that makes $2.50 from in-app purchases on average per user, it means that your LTV is $2.50. And if you want to be profitable, you can buy users at a cost per install of $2.49. Obviously, if you do measure the in-app advertising as well, the LTV that you can measure is $3, even if it's only 20%, even if ads is only 20% of your total, or 16% in this case, it still amounts to a higher CPI. Of course, it's only true if you're confident with the data. If you know that you're accurately measuring it, then you can actually act on it and increase the CPI bids that you do. And this might not look like a huge difference between $2.49 to $2.99, but actually the difference on traffic is quite drastic. And this is based on a case study that Congregate did, actually. And what they discovered is that if they increase the bid by $0.50, that actually amounts to a lot more traffic. And the reason for that is that it's a competitive situation out there. And when you market your app, there are other people who try to market the app. And sometimes by bidding slightly higher, you can get a lot more traffic that way. So it might only be 16%, 20% of your ad revenue. By actually factoring that into ad LTV, you can increase traffic significantly and grow a lot faster. We're going to talk a bit more about ad whales. This is a case study we did with Nanobit. So this is the first study I'll cover today. Nanobit, if you're not familiar with them, it's a studio that specializes in narrative games. It's a mid-sized studio. Their most known titles is My Story and Hollywood Story. So it's like a adventure, like choose your own adventures, like choices or episodes, if you're familiar with those titles. And let's understand a bit more what I mean when I talk about ad whales. So if you're not familiar with the concept, this is actually what we see across hundreds of apps that we monitor, is that actually 10% of the users amount to about 70% of the ad revenue. So it's way more concentrated than people usually expect. So if normally people think about ad revenue as kind of evenly distributed, they think each user makes a few cents, but in reality that's very far from the truth. In a single day, a single user might make $10 if he installed like one casino app, and you get the rev share off of that. And if we look at the lifetime of a user, the top users actually make more than $100 in pretty much any app that we monitor. And when we look at real-time bidding, we see bids go all the way up to $999. So ad whales definitely exist. We see them in pretty much every app that we monitor. And obviously knowing who they are is as important as knowing who your payers are. So there are a lot of things you can do with the ad whales. One thing that Nanobit tried to do is target the lookalikes of the ad whales on Facebook. So yeah, obviously 70% ROI on day 7 is good in any benchmark. Typically we see companies trying to get 20% after 7 days, 30% of the money back. So 70% is like twice as good as a standard campaign. What exactly do I mean that they do ad whale lookalike targeting? It means that they would take a list of the ad whales. So they would take a spreadsheet with like all the users and see the top users. They would upload that to Facebook. They would ask Facebook to do lookalike modeling, and then they would target that in campaigns. So these are the initial results. Obviously, numbers here are not very big, but they were actually able to scale it up quite significantly. So when they started, obviously, they had 0% of their budget going into ad whale targeting. But now they have more than 50% of their budget, total UA budget, going after ad whale lookalike targeting. And this is not like completely related, but the whole company kind of grew significantly over the last 5-6 quarters. So maybe we had some part in enabling that. And obviously, marketing is a big part of the growth, right? The second case study I'm going to cover is about how companies use granular data to optimize their yield, the monetization on a per user basis, and specifically how they did that by optimizing the price floors. This case study is with a company called Triple Dot, sorry. And if you're not familiar with Triple Dot, they are like the Apollo project of mobile gaming, or so says Pocket Gamer. It's Lior and Akin and Mark, very successful guys, started the studio, and they're growing super fast. Their top 2 apps, they have 4 now, but their top 2 is Solitaire and Sudoku. Both of these are completely ad funded. Also, there are other games, completely 100% of the revenue coming from ads. So obviously optimizing the yield is super important. So this is basically the chart of the density of the bids at different CPM levels, right? So different bid levels. So on the left side, like the lower bids, you can see the volume. On the right side is the higher bids. And obviously the height of the chart is how many bids came in at that price. And using granular data about the bid levels, they were able to see that actually some of the advertisers would bid actually $95 to be placed in their apps. And this is also quite surprising because when we think about CPMs in mobile games, we think about like $10 average, on interstitial $15 sometimes. But actually the diversity is quite high. And it goes all the way to $95. And if you're not able to capture that, if you're not able to actually give the priority to advertisers when they bid higher, you're leaving money on the table. So maybe the subtext of price floor optimization is that the mediation on its own, if you put that on autopilot, are not doing the perfect auction. So until we have full programmatic with in-app header bidding and all these new methods, the mediation is not always able to capture all the bid level information that is available, and it's not allowing you, even if someone is able to bid 95 on Facebook, if you don't give the priority to Facebook and you give the priority to AdMob instead, then you will not actually get that advertiser. So it's important to know how to set your price floor correctly. And it's also important to start pretty high. In this case, you can see that the volume for 95 is not very high, but actually, one impression at $95 is like 10 impressions at $9. So even if your fill rate on those top price floors is quite low, it still can amount to a lot of revenue. And this data obviously coming from the SOOMLA platform about the bid levels, and that helped them optimize the revenue quite significantly. So overnight, they saw about 30% increase in total revenue. Some of the networks, you can sort of guess who the green chart is based on that and the previous chart. But when they were able to give priority to the network that actually has the highest bid, that network jumped significantly in CPMs. And it also, so 30% increase in revenue overnight is quite phenomenal for any business. I'll take that today. But over time, the increase was actually much higher. So over time, what we saw with Triple Dot is that they started around 6 cent ARPDAU, and they were able to optimize that all the way to 15 cent ARPDAU, so about 2.5x on their ARPDAU levels. And it's not just like the additional revenue, it's a growth engine for the company because it enables the company to be, to market more aggressively, to grow faster, to raise more money, because it kind of impacts the entire business if you can create that drastic level of improvement in your revenues. The third case study I'll talk about is Lotum and how they use granular data to blacklist advertisers. Obviously, with ads, there is a new opportunity of revenue, and everyone is excited about that specifically. But when you think about ads, not everyone is super excited about ads because ads have some negative implications on user experience, on retention. So your competitors might be advertising in your app. Do I want that? Do I not want that? So the issue of blacklisting advertisers is a topic that is discussed pretty much in any given mobile app company, because in a sense, all apps are kind of competing for the same time of the user, for the same wallet. And 90% of the ads that are being shown in mobile apps are for other apps. So you're going to advertise some level of competition, and managing that with data is far better. So a bit more about Lotum. Lotum is based in Germany. They're most known for their app 4 Pics 1 Word. This app was downloaded more than 200 million times. It's completely ad-funded. It's quite casual fun, and yeah, in general, word games are doing phenomenal in the last year, being ad kind of funded, and this whole growth is taking place in word apps as well. So this is what Lotum sees in the SOOMLA dashboard when they log in. This is quite old. You can see the advertisers are kind of Game of War, Soul Hunters, Lords Mobile is kind of. This was like more than a year ago, but you get the same view any day. And for each advertiser, they could see how much ad revenue they're getting, and they can get insights from that. But they were mostly interested in who should they allow in terms of like what is the impact of retention. So this is the report that they were able to create with the SOOMLA data. They could actually see for each user what ads he has seen, what ads did he click on, and they could correlate retention back to the ads that the user has seen. And they found that the app that is most correlated with the churn that they have is Game of War. So users who have seen the Game of War ads were 3 times more likely to churn than any other advertiser. Mobile Strike and Word Connect also ranking quite high on the churn. And then they thought, okay, so these apps are causing churn, so like maybe I should blacklist them. And in any app, there is some apps would cause more churn than others. It doesn't necessarily mean you want to blacklist them. It just means you want to pay more attention to them and see how you manage that. And obviously, the next question they ask themselves is, okay, how much revenue am I getting from Game of War, and is it justifying the amount of churn I'm doing? In this case, they were able to create basically the pros and cons chart, right? So on one side, how much revenue am I making for any 1,000 impressions? So basically the CPM from that advertiser. And on the other side, basically a normalization of how much revenue am I losing because of that churn that specific advertiser is causing for me. And that creates the decision-making panel for blacklisting. In this case, you can see that the revenue from Game of War was not justifying the churn, but actually their direct competitor, Word Connect, which is obviously a word game, the revenue was, the churn was high, but also the revenue was much higher, and it is justified. So this basically gives a panel of who should you blacklist and who should you not. And sometimes even blacklisting is not the answer. Sometimes you can do like specific rules to only allow these advertisers in specific line items that are paying higher, etc. So with more data, you can make better decisions about who do you want to blacklist, who do you want to allow to advertise in your app, and you can improve your retention, which is obviously super important alongside monetization. So I'm nearing the end of the presentation. A few more words about like how we collect the data and our unique approach to DellTV. There are a lot of new options in the market today. We have been doing this for the longest amount of time. We have the most advanced data collection technology. So obviously we track the impressions, we track all the user engagement with the ads, we track how many installs it generated for the advertisers, which is highly correlated with the revenue, obviously, because advertisers are actually paying for the installs. We're the only company who's 100% focused on measuring the DellTV. We're unbiased, third party. We don't sell our own media. We're not an ad partner, so we don't have conflicts of interest. And we are the only company who is doing DellTV that is constantly testing ourselves. Any given month, we see about 10 billion impressions. Out of those, we have about 7 million true validated revenue data points that we can test against. And basically, we hide about half of that from the algorithm. We ask the algorithm to calculate the other half. And this is how we know that we are accurate. This is how we know we improve over time. And this is a big part of how we do what we do. These are some of the testing results. You can also see more testing results on our website. We publish them almost on a monthly basis. You can download that from our website or from a blog. We recently did a write-up about how we test ourselves. And also in our blog, there is a lot of original content about DellTV, about ad-funded apps, about how to measure things in the ad revenue space. This is a recent case study with, recent industry report we published. And you can find it in our blog on the top right corner. It's full of insights about DellTV, how you can benchmark yourself against other games. You can benchmark networks against each other. And I think the most, the highlight of the report is it shows how much promise there is in ad-funded apps. Even if you're making 100% of your revenue from ads, you can still build big businesses. And the report kind of shows some numbers around that as well. And yeah, thank you for listening. Have a great day.